Hello, all. Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
Joining us in the pod layer today via Zoom is the versatile Shane Hartline, who played Ryan Phillips, the father of the drowning victim on season 1 of The Pitt. Welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here with us.
Oh man, thank you for having me. We were supposed to do this a week ago. Unfortunately, got an audition, and it's funny the second. I mean, good problems to have.
Right.
The second we started recording, I just got a text for another audition. Like this business be given and also be distracting. But I'm very grateful you guys reached out to ask me to be a part of this. This will be fun.
Well, you can thank Brian Tishnell for that because
Brian.
We interviewed him, amazing human. And he was like, he gave us a couple of people. He's like, you got to reach out to these two. And I was like, okay, cool. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Brian and I were in an acting class together for a second, and he's, we have so much in common, and I'm so excited that he's been able to come back in the Pit and, a recurring character. And it's funny, I've had people of course, dive into my character in the episode, but I've had people that have reached out and they're like, "Are you going to come back?" I'm like, "Well, I hope. I would love to." But what? My other kid died.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
You're going to look like a really bad parent at that point,
right? So it's like, as much as I love money and working, I don't see it with this guy unless there's some side story or something. I don't know.
Honestly, though, I remember from ER, and I didn't watch ER, but just.
I did.
Yeah, I know Becky was a massive ER fan. And so, oh my God, Becky, I've already said massive once. I'm going to start keeping it in tally.
Is that the special word?
No, it's just like the last interview we did. I went back and listened to this season. There's an actor named Charles Baker who played Kenny Pete on Breaking Bad. And he is playing an unhoused man named Mr. Digby on this season. And great interview. But anyway, I just noticed in that interview that seems to be the word that I've repeated over and over again.
I say super a lot. Well, I did until this person on YouTube took every video that I said super, super cut. It's on YouTube. I think you can look.
It's a super cut.
A Shane Hartline super cut. And from then on forward, I'm like haunted. I can't say it ever again. I won't. So I say it much less than I used to.
That's hilarious. Oh, we need to do that, Mandy, because we seem to pick a word for every show and we don't mean to. Like this year,
subconscious.
If I say chef's kiss in this interview, that's apparently my thing.
We need to get one of those rubber bands and just start slapping ourselves every day. Anyway. Where were we going with this? I was telling, there was a reason that I brought up that I was talking about. What was I starting?
The side stories and the character
coming back.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, just one of the things that we have learned through talking to and like doing my due diligence and reading up on them is that some of the people on the show were from ER and some of them played more than one character on ER. So there's always the possibility that, sometime down the road.
I was kind of hoping that you had a really solid pitch that I could take them but
give us a minute.
Give us
time. Let me know if you get something.
Yeah, I'm on it now.
We'd be writing episodes each podcast. We're like, oh, writers, hit us up. We got this.
Man, I like massively covered up in my day job right now. And you know how your brain is when you have something that you absolutely have to do. Your brain wants to do anything other than that. And so today, my friend Becky and our friend Sam and I have a pretty active group chat. And I sent them an entire novel that I have come up with today. So I'm on it. I got a lot of stuff I'm supposed to do this weekend, and I don't want to do any of it. So instead, I'll just be coming up with new character pitches for you.
Oh, sick.
I like it.
Well, just jumping into the first question here. So we always start out with asking our guests how they ended up in the Pit. But before we get to that, we want to know, how did you get into acting in general? And before you answer, I'm going to tell you some cool things that I found out about you. So I want you to incorporate these into your answer. Number one, love that you're a fellow Southerner. I think that's one of the things we love about talking to Brian. I think only other Southerners can understand both their joy and pain of being from this place at this particular point in history. But the wrestling thing, man, I need you to make sure that you tell us all about how you got interested in wrestling. I used to love wrestling until the McMahons literally became, part of the dark side. I was a massive wrestling fan. So I want to hear all about wrestling, how that led you to acting, and what you're doing with that today.
100%. So my dad wrestled in the 80s.
No way.
Yeah, a little bit. Like he dipped his toe and he has a whole famous story. I don't know if how much of this is heightened or embellished to be a bit more romanticized, that the moment he was like presented a contract, he met my mom and quit wrestling. I do know he was involved, but like that's the story he likes to tell us, and I'll stick with it. It's fine with me. From a very early age, I was, fortunate that, he introduced me to wrestling. They introduced me to like film and television. I just, from the youngest age, I was just so fascinated by like pop culture. And at the time in the late 80s, it was Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, all the big, cool Batman and wrestling. So many of these things like just like shaped me and have left such a mark on me. And from a very young age, I found and it's really cool, like going back and looking at home video footage. There's so many clips that my family has of when they were filming of me at like had to be like 2 or 3 years old, like barely could speak, but saying, I want to look in the camera, I want to see through. And so, the whole cliche was always in me. I really believe that because the earliest footage I have of myself, like I'm wanting to see through the viewfinder. I'm wanting to use the camera. And the greatest thing that my parents ever did for me was, I think when I was old enough, when they realized that I wouldn't just break it, they would let me use their video camera and start to like film little bits and little sketches, little stop motion movies. Not only was I doing filmmaking at like 8 and 9 years old, I was behind the camera, I was in front of the camera, and there was a part of me, I was blessed, covering that word with sarcasm, I was blessed with a very rare neurological condition when I was a kid, called spasmodic dysphonia, which, going into middle school and stuff became something that was like bully target on me. So I learned very quickly, being the goofy, silly guy that could like change my voice would actually like work in my favor, and became something that was like, I really like this kind of attention. It was this like beautiful melting pot of all these things that happened. When I was about 14, 15, I went to a WWE event because that was when I was so deep into my interest in wrestling. And the way I always looked at it, it was like, I'm going to do wrestling to get into Hollywood. A very hard path, very possible, but a very hard path to do it. I went to a wrestling event when I was like 14, 15, and there was this guy outside. He was handing out flyers for his wrestling school, and it says, with a parent's permission, you can be a teenager and start training. I was there the next week. Now, the first few lessons, I was like, maybe this isn't the best idea. It was very difficult. Wrestling may be fake, but it is way more real than people realize.
It's still very hard on the body.
I mean, I got into it at like 14, 15. I started wrestling on the independent wrestling circuit. At the first match, I think I had was 16. And by 17, I was wrestling every weekend in the state of Florida. Now, granted, like I'm a 17-year-old wrestling men in their mid 30s, 40s, 50s. I was always a very nice kid, very humble, but very intimidated. So I'm wrestling like guys of all ages, and they see this fresh new kid. And while I had a lot of friends in the business, there's a lot of people that were like, we're going to beat the shit out of this kid.
I don't want to stop you too long.
Please.
Can you share what was your wrestling name, Shane?
Oh, yeah. Well, I looked very different back then. I was very different. You take me now versus what I looked like back then. Very different, completely different human. I was Rip Malibu, the surfer.
Yes.
So I was a tan, curly blonde head.
I love it.
I look like an Abercrombie kid, like.
I love that name. That's amazing.
It was so fun. It was so fun.
I am not being ironic with any of this, by the way.
We grew up watching wrestling. My favorite wrestler back in the 80s was Tully Blanchard, if that tells you how long I've been into wrestling.
Big fan. Big fan.
Oh, yeah.
So sick.
I thought that was an amazing name when I read it. I thought that was so creative.
Thank you.
Were you a baby face or a heel?
Oh, I was a baby face. I wanted to be a heel at first, and then like the way I looked, everyone was just like,
You just weren't
can't,
ready.
you can't be." So it was funny. I looked like a surfer-ish. Never surfed a day in my life, but I looked like a surfer back then. And so I'll never forget. My dad woke up one day, not even exaggerating, and like he's a man of few words, but he's like, "I had a dream of a character named Rip Malibu." I'm like, "That's it.
Yes.
That is literally it." So I started wrestling as this character and it like picked up steam pretty quick. And I also was like kind of approaching wrestling a bit different than people were back then. Now everyone is kind of approaching it this way, but I was looking at like, oh, let's do content around this character. Let's bring in
Right.
like t-shirts and merch and all these like creative ways to get my name out there. And my name out was getting out there pretty quick. And I got like Rookie of the Year 2005, and I started getting all this interest from these rumblings. I don't know if they were 100% verified, but there were like rumblings of like the WWE is like watching you. It's just a matter of time before, they're like, we want to give you a tryout and that like opportunity aligns and all that kind of thing. But when I started hearing those rumblings, it was at the same time, I'll just say there was like a lot of toxic masculinity in the business back then. Not that there isn't now, but there was much more back then. And I was not in a place, I think, where I was ready to or capable of handling the business that I was just by myself in
Yeah.
every weekend and multiple times a week in training sessions. This little site called YouTube popped up then, and I was like, oh, this is everything I've ever wanted. So I don't ever say I fully quit wrestling because I still am kind of involved in the business still to this day, just in a different kind of way. But I
Hmm.
definitely stopped full time because I was like, this YouTube thing. I started uploading comedy sketches and jackass stunts with my friends. Just I was like, because before, and I'm sure you guys remember, posting videos online was not an easy process. Like,
Not at all.
and so YouTube literally just my brain just started exploding at what the possibilities could be. Like, granted, looking back, I wish I'd have done some things different. But from it, like jumping forward, I started getting interest in like these little like, oh, we want to use your clip on our TV show. We want to, oh, I have like an agent reached out and signed me through YouTube, and then started getting auditions, and I'm like, oh shit, this is the path I always really wanted. And I'm so grateful for my time in wrestling. There are times I miss aspects of it, but I try not to live life with like I should have done this, I should have that, because
Yeah.
I'm really grateful, especially with being an. There's very few actors in this business with speech conditions, or let alone like neurological speech conditions, to be able to do everything that I've done with it. Like I'm now at a place where I can be like, we did it. We're doing it.
Yeah.
We're doing it, man. Like I'm very proud of myself. But yeah, to jump back, YouTube got me my first agent, and then snowball, 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 and that's how I'm here.
That's awesome.
So you left Florida, moved, or I'm assuming you're in California now.
Uh-huh. I'm in
Uh,
I'm in California. I left. This is my 10th year in California. Wait, no, 15. Holy shit. This is my 15th year in California. 2011, I booked. You remember the Rock of Ages movie?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I booked a part in the Rock of Ages because it's shot in Florida, and I was already around that time, like opening my mind to moving to Los Angeles.
Hmm.
A friend of mine, comedian Peter Murphy. I have to always like shout him out because like if it it's these certain people you meet and like
Hmm.
they're like that he was like we got to go to Los Angeles. I'm like okay, I don't got money. So I was like, I'm gonna start saving money. And it was like one of those things, like maybe in 6 months or a year, 2 months later, I booked this movie, and then I have all this money I have never had before.
Perfect.
So I was like, okay, I gotta do it now. This is like a sign. This like
Yeah.
if I stay here, I'm just gonna waste the money that could be put towards the expensive process of moving across country.
Yeah. Well, good for you. That was like fate.
It really was. It really was. It was super special.
So how did you end up on the pit?
Well, long journey, I think, to get to like this point. I mean, truthfully, the pit, like the audition and, the whole process was unlike any part that I had ever done before. It was like one of those preparation met like the opportunity moments because I've been involved in taking I've been in acting classes since 2012, 2011, and I think to be very technical, it was just like one of those things. Like this was a very demanding part. Like I'd never done a part like this. Like most of the roles that I've ever done have been very straightforward or comedic or intense or assertive. Like this was, I mean, I had to tap into a part of myself that I've never had to do on camera. So there was, the audition was like one thing. We do hundreds of auditions. So it was just like, all right, I'm going to do what I got to do this audition. Felt really good about it, but like, one of those parts where I was just like, well, they're going to cast some amazing dramatic actor for this heavy part. And when I booked it, I was like, oh man, now what? Now how do I replicate? Like the pressure, I felt a different kind of pressure for this part that I had never felt before on any other parts. Star Wars was one of them that I felt a pressure, but more to like kind of honor the like kid in me, the Star Wars fan. I was just like, dude, you can't drop the ball on this. It was like a different kind of pressure. And also like that is a crazy franchise. I never knew what would become of the Pit. So that also helped, I think, in a little bit of it. But I more so just like wanted to make sure that I gave them what they were looking for. And I learned so quickly so much about how to use my instrument and how to pace myself. And
that leads really well. Becca, do you want to go ahead and ask question 2? Because I think that we're getting into that territory.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's you're right. That'd be great. So as you were just talking about, you talked about the Pit being one of the most challenging yet rewarding experiences of your career. So first question is, which scene was the most difficult to get right and why? And then the follow-up is, what's the most valuable lesson you learned about lead performance or set leadership with your time with Noah during filming?
All right. First question, the most difficult scene? Your question was what was the most difficult scene?
Yeah. What was the most difficult one to get right?
Okay, yeah. Now, get right is that's a subjective question with acting. And I always try to take that pressure off of myself when it's like, I got to get this right. No, you hired me. Now, that is coming from someone with a very unique situation. Like, for me, I always have put so much extra pressure on myself with acting because of my speech condition. Mm-hmm. So I've been in a much better place in the past 6-7 years with that journey of they hire me, I'm bringing them my instrument, my tool, my paintbrush. So get right is so subjective, and it's based on like director and so many factors. Like I did a commercial recently that was so much more intricate than even the Pit. It was a different kind of stress.
Really?
It was a different kind of stress.
I think a better way to phrase that, I guess, to really get you to where the heart of the question, that was such a horrendous,
heartbreaking
plot line. Like, how did you get yourself to the emotional place that you had to get to?
To play it as truthful as possible.
Yes.
That was what I felt the pressure. I've never had a kid, but I've felt loss. I've never lost a kid. How do I honor people that have lost? Like I felt all these things.
Yeah.
But what I try to do is take that pressure off myself. And for me, my approach and my method with, this whole arc of the episode, because every episode we had to have a baseline of fear, anxiety, like stress, anger, confusion. And then in the last scene, which was, to answer your question, the most difficult, it starts with all those things. And then there's like a moment of hope. Then our world just crashes. Mm-hmm. What I learned, and I'm so grateful they shot these scenes in sequence over the course of 3 days, it was. They shot it pretty much in sequence, which was really helpful for us. What I learned like quickly is, for me, my approach, it's going to sound a little woo-woo, but like energetically, spiritually, at the frequency or open myself in the way that I can be there for that moment. Music and like visualization was like really helpful for me. What I found out quickly, and this is like a lesson to like aspiring actors, when you get on set, you don't need to immediately dive into that place. What I would urge like people to do, and I found out quickly after my first day, because that's what I did, is I immediately got into my trailer and I was like, music, visualization. Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. And then I'm not shooting for another 3 or 4 hours. So I'm like, oh crap, I got to keep myself there. What I did, which was, really helpful the next day, is I was like, all right, that didn't, because I was so exhausted after the first day. And to make sure I had enough energy to perform that heavy scene the next day, the difficult scene, I mean, they're all difficult, but that the last scene is not from a place of like arrogance or cockiness. I went up to the one of the ADs and I was just like, hey, when we're getting a sense of like us getting close to shooting, can you come and tell me about 30 to 45 minutes before so I can like start prepping myself? So that way I can just like I can breathe, I can relax until that point, and then it's kind of like, all right, it's go time. It's like how a performer stretches,
Yeah.
at a certain point. You find these kind of methods and way of doing that works for you. Now, music might not be what works for another actor, and that's why I've never been a really big fan of, oh, I am going to this school and I'm learning a strict method of acting. That
Right.
method might work for 2 out of 10 people, but what works for the other 8 people might be a different method or an entirely different kind of spiritual approach because we're all like so fundamentally different. Like I had after that last scene, and I definitely want to dive into it so deeply because there's so many things that happen in that scene that were just such incredible like moments and learning lessons. But after I was very proud of what we did because I was like, oh, it felt like I felt so dropped in and more connected than I've ever felt in a scene in my whole life. It was extremely difficult, but what I'm getting at is one of the background actors came up to me and he's like, because he saw me before each take, even though like cell phones were not allowed on set. I was like, hey, you guys are asking a lot of us in this scene. I'm bringing my phone. I'm listening to certain songs right before I have to go. He's like, man, this actor. He came up to me. He's like, you got to let me know what songs you're listening to. And I'm like, I appreciate you coming up to me and like I'm so grateful for the compliment, but like I can't because they're like special to me. I'll never tell anybody those songs, but also it's like if you want to use music to get yourself there, my songs won't work for you.
Right. Find what works better for you.
Mine are so
Yeah.
tied with like personal experiences and now visualization that I've like tied them to, so I don't ever listen to those songs until I need them because they now are so connected.
It's almost like a magic talisman for you. I kind of think I
Yeah.
understand, like, even though one, practically speaking, I absolutely agree with you that like what works for you is not going to necessarily work
No.
for someone else. But also I could appreciate as somebody who has my own like little talismans like that, like it almost feels like it would lose some of the magic if you gave
Yeah.
that secret away to somebody, even though
Absolutely.
like part of you knows that that's not logical. We're not talking about logic here.
I think the very base, I think giving him just the like find songs that work for you and songs might not work for him. Songs might not work for
Right.
actors. There's other approaches. There's all kinds of techniques people use to open themselves and get into that position. But I think also truly like, and I'm sure literally every human being on this planet, the older you get, the more experiences you have, the more loss you've experienced. It was not hard for me to think about something that was special to me. And the thought of losing that also immediately like got me into that like space. So I hope that wild answer answered the first part of your question.
It absolutely
And
did.
you nailed it too.
Yeah, that's what I think we want to get across to you. And this is a good time to do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
As people who have raised children, like it's remarkable that you have not, because that storyline of all the storylines has been, for me personally, the most difficult. Because I can imagine a lot of horrible, horrible things. My brain is on fire all the time, and I am constantly coming up with worst case scenarios. I literally cannot think about that happening to my child
Yeah.
because it is so horrendous.
I've had a lot of people message me and say similar things. So
Yeah,
thank you.
and
It's one of those like, thank you, I get, like I hate.
no, it is a compliment. You
Yep.
destroyed us
Oh, thank you.
in that,
But in the best way.
in the
Yeah,
best
yeah.
way.
You
Yeah,
affected us, you impacted us, and to walk away from an episode feeling emotionally drained means you guys did your job and you did it right, and we all can either take something from it or felt something from it. And it's just how you pulled that off. It's chef's kiss.
Thank you. But it's one of those, to give you one of those kind of cliche answers, there was no way it would have been possible, like to the extent that it became, without the scene partners. I was so fortunate. The woman who played my wife, Marcy Miller,
Also amazing.
he
Yeah.
so quickly, just like, I felt such a beautiful connection with her immediately. And
Yeah.
and that just also took some weight off my shoulders, because sometimes you never know energetically what you're getting. I've had scene partners in my past that I've had to play romantic connections with that I couldn't have energetically been more opposite from. So, you know what I mean? And Noah, the moment, truly, I get like goosebumps thinking about it. The moment when he comes around the bed and he delivers the news to me, it every time got me there. It every take hit me, because it was so real. Like, it was so real. And that's why I was so grateful to him. And one, he was an amazing human and a great man to work with. And so grateful that I got to work with him. He was an incredible scene partner. Marcy was an incredible scene partner. Everybody in the room, the director was so gentle with us with what we needed. I'm very grateful for my time on that show. It was brief, but like,
How did the overall vibe of the set help you? Because we've heard from other people,
uh,
including Brian, that everything is as close as possible
uh,
to an actual hospital. Do you think that helped a lot?
so much. I walked in the first time, and like a usual built set, there's open ceilings with lights and there's crew members wearing all these things. It was a closed off ceiling like a real hospital. 99% of the crew was wearing doctor scrubs. And a hospital hits everyone, I think, pretty similarly. And it hit me like, it was so helpful. It was like, oh shit, like, this is going to be hard, but in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
We got done with that scene, and the writer came up and was so grateful. He was even like, I'm not trying to out him or anything, but he's like, this is Emmy worthy.
Agree.
You got to look at it from where I'm coming from. Like, I've been very fortunate to do some incredible things in this business, but like, I've never had a part this dramatic, this heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I left that day, and I'll never forget, walking back to my trailer with Marcy. And it was like one of those things, like, we're like arm in arm, and we're like, I feel really good about like what, like, I think we did. I think we gave, because she was feeling the pressure too. It's
Sure.
like, so we're just like in tears, just like so grateful. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. We were so grateful, like, to be able to get there and like give them what they needed.
It's like you've been in a foxhole together.
Yeah. We felt like we went to war together, and told her, I was like, thank you. This is the time. This is the first time in my career that I've ever felt like a real actor. Like, not that I've never called myself an act, not, you know what I mean, but
Sure.
like a real dramatic actor. I'm like, it made me feel so like confident in myself.
You should. I'm going to tell you something,
Thank you.
and I'm going to move on to the next question after that. But I want to make sure that I get this opportunity I take to tell you,
Please.
you affected me so much in that performance as a mom, and that was funny when we were researching for this, getting ready for this interview. I was going through your IMDb because you look so familiar to me. Like, I know his face, and I looked through your IMDb, and honestly, you have a pretty extensive IMDb. I've not seen you in other things. Your face is just stuck with me, and that's I have face blindness. Like, my son is on the ball team, and my husband coach. They were on our team for 4 or 5 years, and I wouldn't recognize them if I saw them at Walmart. I know your face, and I realized it was because you did such a phenomenal job. And I think you kind of reminded me of my husband and his relationship with our kids
Oh,
in
wow.
that scene. And it was just so powerful to see you go from worried but hopeful and not wanting to believe to having to accept that you've lost your child in the most tragic way possible. It was such an affecting performance that it stayed with me all this time,
Thank you.
because we went on that journey with you, not
Oof.
to sound too dramatic, but I
No,
mean,
but everybody has or is going to experience loss, and sometimes it's way more tragic than others. And we know one day we'll understand the purpose and the meaning of all this. It's funny, like this thing we do as actors, it's like we kind of telecast the human experience a little bit, and
Yeah.
so we can all remember at the core we are so connected, and like in a world that's unfortunately so disconnected.
Right. And that's why I wanted to take that moment, because I imagine it's
Oh,
very
man.
lonely sometimes to know, does any of this matter? What I do, this,
Yes.
place that I put myself through, all of this that I put myself through, did it reach anyone? And we just want you to know that it absolutely did.
Thank you so much. Well, the episode was the writing was, which was really so cool. This was the first project that I've ever gotten this much feedback on. Like the Pit, none of us, I would think, knew what this show would become. I have one friend of mine who's a bit of a contrarian and a very critical friend. And when he liked the Pit, I was like, oh, like this show must be special. Or, you never know. You just never know.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the one person who did know was Becky.
Oh,
She
really?
absolutely knew. I was the contrarian friend that she was like, we're going to do this show. And I am not really, medical dramas are not necessarily my thing. And so I was like, hey, I'm on for the ride, but I was kind of skeptical about it. She absolutely had a gut instinct that this show was going to be phenomenal.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
she
we were
was
the
right.
first non-affiliated podcast to cover the Pit.
Oh, sick.
And when I saw it coming and I saw that it was Noah, it was Dr. Joe, I was like, I remember how much I loved the ER. And I was like, I know this isn't ER, but I think that's what's about to make it interesting is the way they describe the show. And once we got through that first episode, we both were like, this is
Yeah.
different. This is
Yeah.
big.
Well, I think also the authenticity
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
shines
it.
through. There was real doctors on set to answer any questions. These doctors went through like boot camp. There was, you know, there was depth, and what I mean by that was like we'd be in one room, and then the other scene is also happening in the other room.
Oh,
So
wow.
everything is happening all the time. I loved the way they approached this. It felt like theater. And
Yeah.
it really did. It was immersive kind of like theater experience. And like I think that realism like has connected with people.
It's our favorite thing about the show is the realism and how they've chosen to bring, real world serious storylines into the story.
Things that people are dealing with in this
Yeah,
country
and
today, because healthcare is so massively impactful on all of our lives.
Uh-huh.
But we want to get into you talked about this a couple of times about your spasmodic dysphonia.
Uh-huh.
We want you to explain to our listeners exactly what that means, and how did you and the producers of The Pit decide to integrate that or navigate your natural voice for the character? Because honestly,
we had no idea.
Well, fortunately, it wasn't a factor for this, and it hasn't been for many parts, which I've been very fortunate. It's okay, so spasmodic dysphonia is they kind of like liken it to similar to Parkinson's. It's almost like a Parkinson's sister condition in a sense because same part of the brain, but it's such a new condition. It was really only kind of discovered in the 70s, but basically what happens is either through trauma or just you could wake up and one day your voice sounds different. Something switches in your brain. Our brain is constantly sending signals to every part of our body. It's a computer system. One day your brain can just, I don't want to say short circuit, but a misfire of a signal that then kind of reprograms the way your brain works with the muscles attached to your vocal cords. There's two types of spasmodic dysphonia. One of them is called abductor, one of them is called adductor. One of them compresses the muscles of the vocal cords together uncontrollably. The other pulls them apart uncontrollably. I have a bit of the abductor, which is basically pulling mine apart when I don't know. So my voice tends to sound sometimes breathy when I don't really want it to sometimes. When I got it when I was 5, and for a long time, a lot of people were like, you're an anomaly because most people get it when they're 50. I had a beautiful childhood, to answer the question. I remember experiencing I didn't, from what I remember, experience anything directly dramatic. Anything could have happened, but I don't remember anything. And I was in chorus in preschool, and I vividly remember, going around the circle and everyone's doing their notes. And when it comes to me, my voice, it was almost like something just switched from then on forward. And it was very intense when I was younger. My voice sounded weird. And like, for years, my family, it's not like they were ignoring it, but they were just like, oh, he's just doing this funny thing with his voice. And then it turned into elementary school. Oh, his voice is changing. Wait, his voice is changing a lot longer than it should be. And then when I was 11, 12, they're like, all right, let's go to an ENT. And they immediately were like, oh, he has spasmodic dysphonia, which is weird because he shouldn't. Unfortunately, for people that suffer from spasmodic dysphonia, there's only one forced upon us treatment. I will say forced upon because not a fan of this approach. I don't endorse it. I won't support it. Botox injections into the vocal cords every 4 months, which isn't a fix. It's just a temporary treatment that also doesn't work for everybody. All for your body if you ever want to use Botox. That's not what I'm saying. For me, I just don't support shooting poison into, especially deep inside your body, let alone any part of your body. I think that just the adverse effects, we won't know for quite some time of how it'll affect people. I'm very fortunate. I don't claim to suffer from this condition anymore. I deal with it a little on a daily basis. It's getting easier and easier. And the thing that I can attribute to, because I work with the Dysphonia Association. I've had the opportunity, I've created a short film about somebody with a condition. It's called Cookie. You can look it up on Vimeo or my
That's our next
website.
question.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about Cookie. But I don't claim to suffer because many people suffer. I know people that suffer, and I've had a lot of people be like, what did you do? Like, you're acting with it. Like, what did you do to like get your voice to where it's at? And like, I've experimented obviously with so many things like vitamins, supplements, meditation, acupuncture, all these things. And the concrete I can say that I think that's helped is putting myself in situations that are intimidating, like doing stand-up comedy, doing acting, and almost like reprogramming my brain, because it is also a condition that's triggered by anxiety. There are some parts of it that your brain kind of reprograms the way it speaks, the muscle function in a very technical sense. But there's a lot of it that's just like, oh, I'm in a situation where I feel intimidated that someone literally, it's like, for me, I regress in moments of like, what if people find out about this? What will that lead to? Like, that your whole like child side of you starts to kick in. And so that voice in me is shrinking over as I get older, and I'm just kind of developing like many of us, like, I don't give a fuck what people think about me.
Good for you.
Even though I'm in a business where it's so important what people think about me, you still have to get to that place of I don't give a fuck what people think about me.
Because you have to be able to control it.
1,000%.
It's interesting that you said that about never not saying that you suffer from it. We just had a long talk about that, I think, on the last recap podcast that we were doing. Becky and I both have pretty severe anxiety that we deal with, and I've had chronic depression my entire life, and I'd never say that I suffer from it, because in many ways it's the same thing. It's, you have to, in my philosophy, to survive it and to thrive, because accepting that to me meant I had to swallow this idea that I have a condition that I did not ask for, I didn't do anything to cause. Yep. And I hate being out of control, and I hate the idea of being a victim. Yep. And I was never going to live my life suffering and being a victim. And so I've kind of made it my superpower. And it sounds very much like you have done the same thing. Learning to live on that has made you a stronger person. And through that, it has helped you to, fortunately, also lessen the severity of your symptoms.
I am at a much better place in that journey than I was at the beginning. It used to be something that on a daily basis would haunt me and I would hate about myself, because it was based, everything I would book would then immediately flood me with this fear of like, okay, well, what if my voice, what if I'm not able to like say a certain word in the way that they need? And then they fire me, because I had one instance early on in my career where this director wanted us a line in a very specific way. And that's a rare instance in this business, surprisingly, but it can happen. And it crumbled me, and they gave my line to another person. So that created this like PTSD for a really long time. The
Mm-hmm.
thing that really helped, which we were kind of alluding to, was my short film. Like I hit a point in 2019 where I was like, oh, you know what? I want to make something. I was listening actually to the Duplass brothers. They wrote a book, and they were just kind of like talking about their journey of filmmaking and creating their first movies. And it's like the old cliche of like, write what you know. And I'm like, well, I have a unique situation that not many people, I think, can have ever experienced, of like this human that got this condition and wants to be an actor. Like, what? So I did Cookie, and it was the first time that I had gone public ever about this condition. I had hid it forever and like wore this like these big bag of rocks on my shoulders about it. And so when I opened up, it like truly I felt like I started feeling lighter. And now it's just like, oh, granted, it would still affect me if here's what I'll get to. I'm now at a place where I feel confident enough in my career where I've told my team like, oh, if I'm doing a bigger project, like, and I'm going to be working for a long period of time, and there's going to be ADR sessions, which are really challenging for me. And actually, as someone with a vocal condition, I might be a part of the minority that, oh, you can use AI with my voice if for an ADR session, because it would take a lot of stress off my shoulders. So I think there's like small benefits to AI. That's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah, but an interesting one. Yeah.
I'm definitely in a more confidence place that I can say to my reps, like I was saying, I want to disclose to a project that I have this. This is how my voice sounds. But I'm also starting to find a neutral kind of inflection and tone that kind of works with it instead of against it, especially in heavier parts and softer speaking parts. But what's funny about my condition, and I think it's true to a lot of people that I've met with spasmodic dysphonia, you change your pitch and inflection, and your voice becomes surprisingly easier. So for me, big characters are like way easier to speak in, impressions, like, whatever. Like, that's why I think comedy found me at a young age, or I found comedy, vice versa, is because I was like, oh, if I do silly voices or if I have to do a speech in front of class, I would always be like, can I do it in character or can I do it as an impression of the teacher? Because then they're laughing with me. My
Mm-hmm.
voice comes out easier. The pressure's gone. And yeah, so, but very long-winded answer, but that is my condition. That's the cards that I've been dealt.
Well, you just were talking about you're doing comedy and how much you enjoy doing that. And you have built quite a following doing TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
What is the biggest hurdle in convincing the industry that you were ready for a quote unquote challenging yet rewarding drama like The Pit?
Well, there's a very technical way to answer that.
We want the U way.
I think it's just like over time, it's like you do more parts, you showcase what you're capable of. And then again, it's one of those opportunity meets luck moments when the very technical aspect of it is your representation submits, and hopefully you can get an audition. It's like the lottery. It's like all these factors have to fall into place. That's why it's like when somebody books something, like if you know somebody that's an actor, big or small part, and you're friends with them, when we book something, the odds are so against us. Like, this is the hardest industry to find a place in. That's why I'm always so grateful and fortunate for the things that I've done with the challenges, quote unquote, that I do have. But to very technically answer your question is like, I'm lucky enough to have a rep that got the audition, lucky enough that once that I got the audition, they looked at the work I'd done and they're like, yeah, we'll see his tape. Lucky enough that on that day, I was able to tap into some kind of energy or frequency that spoke to the one first person that saw my tape and then was like, oh, yeah, we'll pass this on to the next person that then pass it on to maybe the director or maybe the producers. It's like all these things people don't think about, like, that have to fall into line. That it's like, that's why I was fascinated. Like, are you familiar with Alan Watts?
Mm-mm.
He was like an author, I think a poet maybe, but I listened to a speech with him about life recently, and he was, because I'm going through some like heavy life stuff. Who isn't? And he was just talking about how we always just we're looking forward all the time. But if he's like, if you take yourself and like, all right, I'm in this position now and literally trace back every moment before, it's like, oh yeah, all these things, every single thing happened to lead me to that point. All the maybe it was all the hardships that I'd gone through in my personal life experience that like allowed me to be able to open up to that place I probably couldn't have 2 years, a year before, you know? It is kind of crazy to think about like timing
Yeah.
and preparation, all the things.
Yeah, it's very serendipitous, but also I do think that, and we again we're yappers, all three of us. It sounds like so we probably could spend hours talking about uh,
We'll do a
how
part
much,
two.
yeah,
Yeah,
how much
we would love that.
we would love that. How
Yeah.
much of life is serendipity and how much of it is determined by your own actions. But we have very similar philosophies. Becky and I are both big believers too, in that you accept that life has given you certain challenges, maybe, but that the key is that you keep yourself grateful for everything and all of it, and that you just keep moving forward with what you have instead of continuously looking backward and
Uh-huh.
staying stuck in this, poor me of I wish this hadn't happened, or
It's
I
hard though.
It is hard.
It's very hard in this business, but I think there's also something that I probably learned a little earlier than, and it might be what was has been one of my secret weapons of like accomplishing things in this business is I realized very early, even in middle school, I was making this whole movie that I would pass around and like get people to watch. It's like control what you can control, like
right.
to answer to kind of dive into like you mentioned my TikTok and like all the followers and stuff I have is like that's something I to an extent can control. Like
Hmm.
I realized on TikTok a certain types of content was connecting with people, and so especially during the pandemic, I tripled down on making that content. It was
Hmm.
what I had control over. The optics of having a million followers on TikTok has maybe helped me get certain auditions, but it can obviously sometimes book you apart, but like a part like this, it's like maybe it helped me optically get the audition, but the million followers on TikTok isn't going to book me the audition.
Right.
It's the whole like kind of conversation with influencers. It's like all these influencers get all these opportunities, but are they ready for them? Some are,
Right.
some aren't.
Yeah.
So control what you can control. Like, especially I'd urge actors, if you're not yet and you're like, man, nothing's happening for me, like, okay, what are you doing? Are you making your own shorts? Are you making your own series? There's no excuses now. There's no way you can't not make things in your full control that could showcase you and then lead to an audition. Who knows who sees things?
Yeah, we look at this podcast, when we decided to start doing this, it was literally just, I love television. My dream job is to get paid to watch television and
Yeah.
talk about it. And so, we covered What We Do in the Shadows, the final season of one of the greatest vampire comedies ever made. And then we got into the Pit. And when we started covering the Pit through meeting some really great people, we ended up getting to talk with you and Brian
Yep. Yep.
and Alex Metz and all of these amazing people. And we can control this. It is ours, and it is I don't know if respite or
Yep.
it's what we use to help us get through the
You
trying
can't just
times
sit
that
and
this
wait
world
for
is full of it. Right. You've got to,
Yeah.
and it's not easy. I'm not saying, well, just get up and go. I'm not saying that, but I don't want to take away anybody's struggles.
You can't control that people have struggles, but yes, Becky, I think you're right. Get up and go wherever you're at. Get up from that point.
Right. I like to call it finding my grace.
Yeah.
When bad things happen, I made a lot of mistakes in my youth, as we all have. And I've continued to make, not like I did in my youth, but minor mistakes as an adult. But, I look at how all of those single things, people always ask, if you could go back and change anything in your life, what would it be? I'm like, I really don't have any regrets, because every single one of those things turned me and developed me into the person I am today.
Mm.
And I think, so that's what I like to call finding my grace. So sorry, that was a bit of a ramble, but
No, that's beautiful.
I think that actually that's something we all kind of share is just that you have challenges in life and you have a couple of options. And it speaks very much to my soul when you say, control what you can control. I think that a lot of people go through life never understanding that lesson. They are so focused on the things that they cannot control that they're actually giving up control of the many, many things that you do have an option
Yeah.
in. So many of us just go through this life feeling like victims instead of seizing control of the things that we can have some kind of effect on.
Well, it's that whole like, there's a quote. It's like, "Don't let your music die in you." You know, like
Yes.
that whole.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
I've not
that's
heard
such
of
a.
it. Yeah.
And to me, that's something I struggle with. Is while and I think most actors struggle with, is because it's all about like, what are you doing right now, right this
Yeah.
second? So I try a lot to reflect on like the journey and the things I've accomplished, but there is still so much I feel music and like there's so much I want to do, and I never am shy about saying I want to perform on massive stages. And what I mean by stages is I look at all stages in all kinds of ways, because I look at a stage of like whether it's the WWE, SNL, major films, Broadway. Like, I want to perform in front of massive amounts of people. And I'm not afraid. I don't look at that and saying, I just want to be famous. No, there's just some deep desire in me to like perform in the biggest ways possible. Now, I love attention. Don't get me wrong. I love attention.
But
Same.
it's
But
just the joy of performing. And that actually does lead really well
I
into
was gonna
the
ask.
question.
I was like, did somebody sneak him our questions list? Because you have
Right.
segued phenomenally
You really
into
have.
every single question.
you're welcome. You're
You
welcome.
for sure have. And because our final question here is that you have shared that you have really big goals for 2026. So we want to know, what is one specific milestone, whether it's directing or writing or acting, that you are most determined to hit this year?
I'm working on a project that I have so many things I want to do. I want to make a feature eventually. That's my next big thing in that kind of lane, but that's also, it's difficult, but I shouldn't limit myself. I'm working on a project right now. It's called Nearly Average Wrestling. It's like a comedy wrestling project that began with live events. And the live events are basically wrestling comedy shows where people, it's very similar to that show Kill Tony, where people, you can come, you can put your name in a bucket, and if we pull your name, you can come on stage and perform like a wrestling character. And then there's like a panel of judges, and then there's character bits. It's just like this, like, I love big spectacle kind of comedy shows, and I like to put them together with all my friends. So like my goal truly this year is to just like keep building that and making it the best show possible. And I have a lot of like things that are in development that I can't really talk about just yet, but that are attached to it that will help. I'm envisioning just elevate that brand, because like it's a brand that will help me, I believe, cross a path that I want to do, which is like I want to tour with comedy. Like
Yeah.
I want to be able to perform around the country with this. It's like it's very niche. It's something that I'm extremely educated about. I know so much about wrestling. I'm very passionate about wrestling. So I was like, oh, like creating a comedy brand that eventually I can bring all my friends with me and we can tour around the country
Yeah.
and then sell merch and make money and do the whole thing. If I could just like pay all the bills with this comedy project, oh my God, it'd be so fun.
Where'd you get the name Nearly Average Wrestling?
It was something that just eventually came to me over time. I always knew the idea, but a name was something I spent a really long time developing, because like I looked at it as like NAW, the word nah, like
That's what I was saying in my head. I'm like, no.
Yeah, as Southerners, I
Yep.
was wondering if NAW was what you were trying to accomplish.
I love the nah acronym, and I was like, it almost was nearly all-star wrestling, and I'm like, and then like nearly average, because that phrase like you're almost average, but you're not even average. Like
Right.
there's something just funny about that to me.
Yes.
Which also kind of just says what the show is. It's a show about a comedy show about a wrestling company, and the wrestling company, because I've had people all the time, because they've asked me, it's like, is this a real wrestling company? I'm like, it's as real as wrestling.
Right.
Who's to say that it isn't? Because the whole world of wrestling, I think there's a lot of untapped lanes in how you can showcase what wrestling is. It's all theater. It's all theater. It's all just a stage. So there's a lot of ways to like paint on that canvas, and that's like I'm finding my way, I think.
That's awesome.
We can cut this out if you prefer to not get really political or have anything really political associated with this podcast and your episode. I want to ask you this question, and this can be just between us because I'm just really curious to pick your brain about this. Did you watch the State of the Union last night?
I didn't, but all I heard was is the lengthiest that it's ever been.
I didn't watch it. I couldn't do it. I
I refuse
can't.
to watch it. My kids people kept sending me clips, and I've watched enough of it. That man was just doing WWE. Like, you can tell that he is very close to the McMahons. I'm not kidding or being hyperbolic. Literally, that's what he was doing, is that he was up there playing, it was just The
Yeah.
Rock and Stone Cold having their rivalry in the 90s.
He's trying to trigger people.
Exactly. It was no more or less deep than that.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what he was doing, is he was turning the Congress into just a WWE event
Yep.
because he
I
understands enough about psychology, the psychology of the average American voter, or his average American voter, to understand they get that language. Maybe not consciously, but instinctively, they know that he is representing, the guys that they've grown up watching. It's been their coliseum.
Yeah. He's using his audience. He doesn't care about his audience.
Exactly.
He's even made it public many years ago. If he was to ever be in politics, he would choose the Republican Party because he believes, his words, that they're the dumbest people in the country. So he literally has divided us so deeply. At the end of the day, I know this might be an answer that might upset people. Like, I don't like politics because I'm a human being and I hate what it's done
The
to
division.
human beings in this
Mhm.
country.
Yeah. We can cut all of this.
No. I have no problem keeping this in. If you want to know my personal political beliefs, just go back on Twitter a bit. But like, I've chosen in the past couple years to not be as public about my political opinions because I've lost friends over it.
Hmm.
I have been threatened. At the end of the day, it's my core is that I try, it's hard sometimes, especially in this world, but I try to remain in the philosophies that I was taught. And the philosophies that I was taught is that everyone is equal and every human being is connected and we're all made of the same shit deep.
Hmm.
So if and there obviously is an agenda at play to divide us for some bigger purpose, then I don't sign on to any of it. And I mean
Right.
that in both sides. Like, you can go back again and see which side I'm more rightly lean, but this man has obviously done more to hurt our country and divide us as human beings than anybody has in a really long time. I don't support it. And you're absolutely right. He saw a way through this presentational style of professional wrestling to agitate people. So
Mhm.
much so that agitation has caused the deaths of so many people.
Hmm.
And he doesn't care.
He does
So
not care.
I have to, just my personal journey experience, I have to, because it's so easy for, like many of us, to start looking at things, reading things, diving too deep. And before you know it, my energy's gone. And then
Yeah.
I'm not a good friend. I'm not a good son. I'm not a good actor. My purpose, I'm not here to change the world through my political views. I have
Right.
strong views, and privately I tell people them all the time. But like my public platform, I don't know. I was very public a couple years ago when things were really hot at one point, and it made me realize something. It's like if you're choosing to go down that lane of like, I'm going to use my platform for, my political opinions, I totally get it. And I commend a lot of people that do that. And I think that, but just know that I think that in my personal opinion, there's like a lot more deeper things at play. And I don't know who's on our side, and that's what's scary now
Yeah.
is like, who really has our back? We have to have our back, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I offered that we can take, because I do respect that
I have
you have.
no shame to keep this in.
Okay. Thank you.
I really was super interested though, because as a fan of the genre,
Oh, he's
regardless
for
of my feelings of
sure.
him, it was
He's
just my jaw dropped open when I realized
He's being a heel. He's being the bad guy. He's working the biggest stage there is. He's the
yeah.
biggest stage there is the political stage, and
Man,
he's
just the
turned it.
breathless narcissism of I am perfectly comfortable standing in what most Americans have been raised to think of as hallowed ground,
Yeah.
just straight up blatantly performing political theater
Yep.
without even a nod to any kind of decorum
Yep.
or it was, I mean, like, again, I cannot stand that man, but for just a minute, I was a little impressed with his just like, hey, he's committed to the bit, man.
he knows what he's doing. He's
1,000%. It is the only bit that's impressive to me is how little he cares about the world, like, and
Yeah,
how and his effect on it. Like,
yeah.
wow, you're that deep.
There is no bottom.
You have that much power, and you care so little. Like, that's impressive to me.
Yeah. His ambitions are no greater or smaller than he wants to grab as much power for himself and his
And
family.
I think it's more now protection.
Yeah, oh yeah, and to keep himself from going to jail at this point. Part of my political journey is just I was a receptionist for a long time. You know, I saw just how susceptible people were online to believing in conspiracy theory and this idea that all information is equally valid now because we've lost all governors on what is good journalism or bad journalism. And I saw him start to play into this propaganda and conspiracy theory mania that is running rampant since the beginning of the internet age. And we've always been susceptible to it as humans, but I think he saw very early on, oh, I can really snow a lot of people. He saw, you know, and he was the prime pusher of this. Barack Obama is not an American. And I didn't even vote for Barack Obama. None of this is true. Like, you guys
Mm,
aren't believing this, right? Like, there's no proof of any of this. And then I realized, oh, that doesn't matter. He knows his audience and he does
that's it.
not care that he is eroding faith in like very important pillars of our society. He doesn't care about any of that. He just wants more.
Yeah. You nailed it with the wrestling analogy. I couldn't help but think of like back in school when I was a massive wrestling fan and I would get into arguments with kids because I'm like, wait, you like Hollywood Hogan? You like the
Right.
NWO? Those are the bad guys. How do you
Right.
not like Sting? He's trying to save everybody.
Yeah.
Like, but you can't get through to humans when they
They pick a side and it's just that simple.
two-sided. That's it.
Decided that is their team. And for a lot of people, there seems to be no bottom to what their team can do that will turn them off.
But what's really sad is I think that a lot of them look at it as good versus evil in the whatever perspective side they're on. They a
Yeah,
lot of people
you're
on the
right.
right look at it like, no, what they don't understand is they are brainwashed.
Right.
And
I
so it's like,
agree.
to me, it's like it's all gotten so messy that when times like this happen in my life, like what I found personally, and like I think it relates to a lot of people, is like when things get so messy that you're like, I don't know who to trust. I have to disconnect myself from it because
Yeah.
that's the only way I find clarity, and then can be the best contributing human being to society that I can be.
Yeah. We all
How
have
I
our
you have to
limit.
take care of your mental health before you can
Yeah,
help anyone with anything else. So
a
Yeah.
hundred
I
percent.
agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Thank you for going there with me.
Oh, of course. There's a lot of people that have said that is he's literally just using wrestling tools.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, ladies, this was so fun. I would love to do a part two. I think that we could dive into all kinds of fun stuff.
For
I think that'd be
sure.
great. I'd love to hear more about your time working on your film
Yeah.
and then this project that you're working on with Naw. That's
Yep.
how I'm going to say it.
Yep.
So yeah, you let us know when you've got some free time
Sounds
and
good.
we can hop back on. Before we go, where can our listeners find you? Are there any causes, pages? And we talked about your new projects or anything else that you want to tell us about before you go?
Yeah. I'm very easy to find. Just search Shane Hartline on the socials. Support Nearly Average Wrestling. And
Do you have a website?
nearlywrestling.com is the NAW website. ShaneHartline.com has all my socials and everything.
Okay, good.
And if you want to support dysphonia.org, give them a little donation. It's the foundation that covers, research and everything for our condition. That's pretty much it. March 14th, if you're in Los Angeles, come see NAW.
I'm really excited to dig into that. I've taken a little mental health break myself from social media right now, but TikTok is my jam. So I'm going to break and eventually get it back here the next couple of days, probably on my road trip that I'm about to go on. So I'm going to dig into your TikTok.
Our full episodes, they're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Oh, great.
You can kind of, watch
that's
everything.
great. Well, good. And I'll dig up links for all of that and share them in our show notes so listeners can find you easy. And if you happen to run across any Rip Malibu merch that you have, we would love to have a piece of that amazing history.
I need to reprint some shirts because I think they're all in the backs of closets of old friends from high school.
We would wear it proudly.
That's so fun.
We would be the head of the Rip Malibu fan club.
I love it.
We may just start one and you'll just happen to be like, oh, they're serious. All right, cool.
Yeah, it's this guy who used to wrestle. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Okay, that wraps up our interview with Shane Hartline. Next up, we are going to continue our coverage of season 2 of The Pitt.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
I'm Shane Hartline.
I'm going to need you to also say, and I'm Rip Malibu.
And I'm Rip Malibu.
I love it. We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight. Bye.
Bye, everybody.